Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our little sort of in-house webinar. This is the second of our project in-house webinars, and we'll be trying to organize a monthly to exchange news, information, and research, about the project as it goes along. So I'm delighted today that we've got Terri Lawrence with us, who's recently been in Nigeria doing some work over there. And so Terri was we're going to be hearing all about lean management. So I know almost nothing about this, I think. But I'm looking forward to hearing from Terri as to what that is, how useful it is, what it means to us in our little aquaculture world, and how useful it's going to be in the future in Nigeria, and also what are the applications potentially for Bangladesh. So it's a very simple format today. We're going to have a presentation from Terri and then some questions and answers afterwards. So thanks very much for attendance. And Terri, thank you so much for doing this talk for us. And I'd like to just hand it over to you. And if you'd like to share your screen, that would be fantastic.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for being here. My name is Terri Lawrence, and I'm just one of a team of 6 that really worked and did a project to create high impact change with measurable results. So we wanted to share with you what we did and how we got those results. Like I mentioned, it started with a project team, and I can't stress to you how important having a good team is. And I was very fortunate. As you can see, there are 6 of us. We had Dr. Rohana leading us, Dr. Sunil. Those 2 were the key people driving this. We also had Dr. Joe Steensma and Dr. Julius guiding as well and giving their input. And then Dr. Oibola was our in-country consultant. Actually, 5 of them were together before I was brought in. And I was very impressed when I met this group because there was a clear vision. There was a vision, I had a high-level plan that included measurements and obtaining measurements. And that was so critical for me. So when I was told about this program, I was very excited about it. So great group of people from a variety of locations around the world. During COVID-19 times, of course, we weren't ever able to get all together, so I don't have a team picture of us, but boy, we are a strong team. What was neat too is as we dealt with some of the COVID issues and challenges, the team just got along really well. We addressed issues, we worked through them, and came out the other side with a better resolution and a better way to go. So I can't stress how important a good team is, and this is one. I would be happy to work with them anytime in the future. Felt very lucky for that. The team had specific objectives and goals, and it was to utilize lean management. And we wanted to utilize lean to improve operational efficiency in aquaculture, reduce post-harvest loss, improve waste management, and decrease the cost of production. And of course, if we do those things, our costs will drop in the industry and our revenue will increase. So that was the focus. We also have some high-level goals, right? We wanted to demonstrate that lean management would benefit small-scale fish farmers, as well as larger aquaculture operations and processors. So we were looking for a tool that would do both. We also wanted to prevent the loss of value along the value chain. If we did this, we can economize the process of raising fish and bringing them to market. So we really wanted this to work for the industry, to really help those in industry become more profitable. There was a decision to focus on specific areas in Nigeria, Delta State and Ogun State. So that's what we did. As it turned out, we had a total of 40 participants throughout the aquaculture sector. So whether they were in hatcheries, farms, processing, or fish feed producing, all of them were within the aquaculture sector. And we started with some awareness sessions. So this was in late 2020. And the in-country consultant, Dr. Oibola, would go ahead and set up meetings in each of the states, in Delta and Ogun, to meet with aquaculture representatives, tell them about the program, and get them excited about what they can learn, but also the benefits that they could receive from this type of project. Then COVID hit, or got worse, I should say. And so traveling was an issue. We decided as a team to conduct virtual training because we wanted to keep the momentum going. Dr. Oibola got a lot of people interested in our program, and we didn't want to lose that. So in March, we did virtual training. And what that meant was Dr. Oibola went to Ogun State and Delta State separately. We had 2-day sessions each there at each location. And I would be put up on the big screen and do training, conduct training while Oibola was there with the participants. And so we had good lean introduction trainings, and again, kept the momentum going. Next, we had some additional training in May. This training was focused on measurement, obtaining metrics. There's a REDCap application that was created. This has a lot to do with Dr. Joe Steensma, to take the measurements and make them electronic, easy to input. But what was really special about this application is that people in the field, on the farms doing their work, when they wanted to input metrics, they could input them on their phone, even if there was not internet connection. But when they did get to an internet connection, that information would be downloaded, so it would be obtained. So this was a very special application, a special way to use technology that enabled people in the field to put real-time data into their phone. And that was a real key element. So the training continued in May. And then finally, we were able to all meet together with a capstone training and workshops 2-week event, the end of June, beginning of July. This is where lean management training occurred, but also we had a week of in-field practical application workshops. So we'll go into that a little bit. But first, I want to tell you what lean management is, because many of you may have never heard of it before. Basically, it's a methodology that focuses on minimizing waste while at the same time, simultaneously, maximizing productivity. So it's this really great balance. It minimizes waste of material, labor, processes. It has you actually look for waste and be able to identify them. That's part of the skill set. It also works on reducing variation, whether that's the inputs, the processes, or the outputs. Basically, we want things to be consistent with high quality. So it's a very reliable process at the end of the day, reliable in every way. So that's kind of what we're focusing on there, reducing waste, maximizing productivity. And here's an example, or here's a picture from our training. So we had all 40 participants come to Ogun State, and we did in-classroom training at a conference center. So here we are with that. So they learned tools, techniques, and also mindsets, how to think differently. Once they were trained on those, still in the conference room setting, they got to do some practice. So we split them into subgroups. Subgroups meaning those that were in hatcheries, we got them together. Feed mills, labor together. Farmers, we had 2 groups of farmers, and also feed production. So and processors, sorry. So we had people in different subgroups, and they were able to talk about their particular areas right? They identified issues that they all had. And then they would work through the tools that they were taught previously. They would determine the root causes. They would use lean tools to address them and discuss. So they were really able to dive into using what they had learned and applying it to real life issues that they encounter. So they're getting used to identifying issues, getting to root causes, and utilizing the right tools to resolve them. We also had team activities and even competitions. We had a large simulation that took all 40 people, divided them into 3 different teams, and competed. Each team had the exact same process they started with, and we would run that simulation. So they all did the process, and after the process was completed, we would measure. Then each team had 5 to 10 minutes to improve it, utilizing the skill sets and the mindsets they used. They would make improvements. We would run it again and measure and see which team did best. And then we repeated that process one more time. So you had 3 rounds, and they could see their numbers change and improve. They could see the process and their changes implemented real time. And you could, at the end of the day, see the improvements accrue through all 3 rounds. So they got really used to this cycle of improvement. It's called the plan, do, check, act cycle. It's the cycle of continuous improvement. So they're getting used to repeating the learning, the skills, and the methodology that they got in the classroom earlier that week. And this was key. So now they've practiced several times. So then the second week, we could take it into the field. And here's a picture of us out in the field. I'm giving them some instruction. But basically, we went out. We were very fortunate. There was a farm cluster about 20 minutes away. They had several farms. They had a fish processing area. They also had a feed production area. So we were able to tap into all of those different facets of aquaculture. We split the 40 people into 6 teams. And here are just some of the teams, of course. But this is about the size of the teams. And each team was given an area of focus. At the end of the day, or at the end of the week, each team completed 3 different projects, separate projects. And here's what they did. For each project, they went and observed. They watched the existing processes as they were done in those locations. They would talk to the people doing the work. They would collect data. They would ask questions and get very informed on the current processes. Then they would identify and discuss issues that were happening within that process. And again, use those lean tools and that plan, do, check, act cycle to make improvements. So here are some photos of them in their teams doing work, discussing as they improved processes along the way. So these teams, again, had 3 different projects that they were focusing on and completing the full improvement cycle. And some of those improvements could be workplace organization. So in this top photo, you see them there. Basically, this is a work storage area, different pieces of equipment, other materials in there. And in this particular exercise, this team went in and pulled the items out, got rid of things that weren't needed, and whatever remained went back in an organized way, and labeling occurred. So you have labels, you have things put in locations purposefully and intentionally so that items that are used frequently are more in the front, items that are less frequently used are more in the back. Anything that's not needed is removed and put where it is needed. All right, so that's one type of improvement. There was also improvement to reduce distance traveled or time. So what you see in the bottom photo here is actually one of the tools that they learned. This was created on site by one of the participants that showed the movement from the feed store to these different locations. So you can really get a feel for a lot of movement, a lot of waste, and perhaps there's a better way to organize this. And many ideas that came out about this, there were many ideas that came out to improve this, but one was to go ahead and move feed, have different locations and store the feed more point of use. So that was one of the improvements. But these are just a couple of examples. There were lots and lots of improvements that occurred. A lot had to do with workplace organization and distance traveled and time reduction and resource utilization, whether it was reducing feed, fuel, and labor. So lots of options there to make improvements. And all of these improvements at the end of our time in the field were entered into the REDCap app. Dr. Oibola walked them through how to do that, again, to refresh them and make sure that the improvements were input into the system. So again, we have a way to capture the metrics. So when we look back over that time, we had a lot of successes in that project. So that was basically covered a lot of a span of time. We had awareness meetings. We had upfront training, remote training. We also did in-person activities with training, exercises, stimulations, but then also the in-field activities. As you see here, our successes, we had 6 groups that completed 18 improvement projects overall. We collected the data on those 18 projects using the new technology, the REDCap app. And we also saw that groups successfully utilized the lean management. The learning that they got in the class, they were applying it. And with that, the projects that they completed gave us a snapshot into preliminary data analysis on improvements from lean. So here are some of them, and there were many. Reduction in cost, 28.5%. Efficiency in resources, almost 80%. Improvement in product quality, 50%. And we saw a lot of reduction in fuel usage. You see a range here because different teams had different outcomes, between 40 to 65%. Reduction in feeding time by 1/3. And reduction in farm personnel in one area went down to reduced it, cut it in half. We also saw reductions in water pumping. There was instances of people pumping too much water. We saw a lot of instances where people were overfeeding. If they were overfeeding, the water would get cloudy and dirty. And so then they would pump more fuel pump more water and use more fuel to get the water clean. And you can see how that cycle just spends extra money when it's not needed. And so the teams really got after that cycle. So as you can see, we saw a lot of improvements there. And then this bottom one is specific to feed production. They came up with a way to increase feed production by 91%. So pretty impressive numbers there. Great team. And here they are. There's the group of 40 with me and Oibola in the front. But these are the people that went through the training, were enthusiastic. I have never worked with a group of people that were so enthusiastic and participative and just eager to apply lean the way that this group did. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. So this was very impressive. They were fully engaged to learn the material and apply it. Not only that, we had people that were so excited during the training that they would stop and call back to their own farms to tell them about changes to implement immediately so that they could start saving extra, reducing the costs that they've had to deal with, reduce the feeding if it made sense. As they were learning, they were implementing back in on their farms. So that told me that they found the value in this instantly, which was great. Earlier, I talked about the objectives and goals. And after this 2-week program, in-person program, we saw that we really checked a lot of these off, right? We were seeing the results that we wanted to get. The one area we haven't yet is reducing post-harvest loss, because of course we have to go through a cycle before we see that happen. But we do know that these types of tools and techniques and these systems that we put in place will help do that as well. So yet to be seen, but I'm pretty confident. Now, there were some challenges. So we should probably discuss those real quick. COVID-19, of course, that's been a challenge to all of us, but it definitely restricted travels, which kind of delayed the process. But what was impressive was how the team adapted and pivoted. The in-country professionals, Dr. Oibola, and also there was Elizabeth Aqua that helped bring together the people in the groups in each state. So the in-country professionals were invaluable getting and keeping this momentum going. We also conducted virtual lean introductory training, again, to just get some knowledge in there, get them excited, but keep the momentum moving. So we tried to use it as best we could. We also knew that poor internet connectivity was an issue out on the farms. So we needed to bring everybody together for the virtual training. So we rented the conference room facility in the different states to make sure that everybody was there and could, get the training. So there was that as well. There, of course, was increased travel cost with doing that, both international and local. And also there was the issue with these individuals, these participants having to leave their family and businesses for this type of training. But as we saw, by the time they needed to come for the longer training, there was a lot of motivation. They really understood the benefits they would receive if they did it. So our next steps near term is to identify, and by the way, this happened in late June, early July. And the next steps were to identify lean subject matter experts from the group. And we've already done that. And these experts would train others, whether it's other farmers or processors or other people in aquaculture, to go ahead and spread some of this training, some of this knowledge. They also are to conduct new improvement projects, back in their workplaces. So we really want them to continue using these skills to make improvements, whether they're doing it on their own farm or assisting others, and getting that data into that RedCap app. That's what's really key. We also have created kind of a structure to support this activity, this ongoing activity, post-training activity, to ensure that training does occur, the projects are happening, and the data is collected. So we've got now a structure in place to ensure that happens near term. And then long term, overall, our goal is to have the lean subject matter experts complete 150 improvement projects. Now, that may sound like a lot, but at the end of the day, it's just 6 projects per person. And so this will this should not be that big of an issue, considering in 1 week they did 3 each. So as you can see, this is very doable. In fact, we expect to even beat that number. Data will continue to be collected and analyzed. Technical reports, of course, will be produced on that data. And also we will have success stories. Success stories will be ongoing. We've already got a few and more to come. I talked with Preye, who's a small fish farmer in Delta State. While she was in the training, she said this. She said, "Lean has opened my eyes to realize that I waste time, effort, and use more energy than is required." Okay, so she really had this eye-opening moment. And we did hear that from several participants. They have been doing their work for many years, but they never viewed it from the perspective of a process. And that's what Lean helps you do, helps you see the existing process and then redesign it so it's more efficient and has less waste. So that was pretty exciting. And she went back and trained some of her folks on her farm and made improvements out of the gate. So here are just a couple of improvements that she mentioned. She reduced motion time from 3.5 hours to 1.3 hours, or she reduced it by 62%. That's just movement by rearranging where things were located. She also increased production in one of her ponds by 300%. So very impressive. What's really neat about this example is it shows that a participant was able to quickly learn and apply and grow her skill set so rapidly that she was able to go back to her farm, train others on it, and apply these skill sets on her farm with her team and get immediate, impactful, and measurable results. That's the benefit of this kind of a program. So when we think about creating high impactful change with measurable results, the way that we did that, right? We started this project team started with a clear vision and a plan. We engaged participants out of the gate and they were motivated. And again, the in-country professionals are critical at this point. We conducted lean training and workshops, so they really got to hone in their skills of tools, techniques, mindsets, thinking, how to do change, how to create positive change. And we let them grow their skills by practicing, and also practical applications in the field, in work areas just like theirs. We captured the data on RedCap. We utilized technology to make it easier. And it's easier, of course, if you're capturing electronically, it's easier to get that data and create reports and utilize and analyze that data as well, having it all electronic. And finally, create a sustainable structure, right? That structure at the end to make sure that this program is sustainable is really key. And that's what this team has done. It identified that needs to be put in place. We need to make sure that we have the right support structure with accountability built in. So the activities are going to be monitored, supervised. There's technical support if participants need it along the way. So at the end of the day, everyone can do what needs to be done to keep this program successful. And that's basically our project. So this gives you a high-level overview of what our team did and the successes that we had. So I hope this was informative, and I thank you for your attention, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Terri. Okay. Well, Terri, I've got a few questions myself, maybe just to get the ball rolling. I was very interested with the use of this RedCap application. So how adaptable is this? Because, I mean, WorldFish does a lot of survey work, and often this is done, on paper in the field, and then you have to come back and put it into computers. Is RedCap the sort of thing that can save us a lot of time and double entry in the future?
Right. And I see Dr. Joe Steensma is online. This is really his expertise. He's more involved in this. So, Joe, would you be willing to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I sure would. Sorry, it looks like my office is my car because right now it kind of is. I don't get the best internet in my house. So, yeah, I can. It's highly adaptable. We wrote Terri and myself sat down the whole the script for the red cap. You enter in, who helps us, a colleague, a teammate of mine, and so yeah, the short answer is we can do whatever you want. If you can imagine it, it can be done. It does run into challenges when you have multiple layered questions, but Terri and I, we are working through that. So yeah, we've learned some things, but for sure, I think it's highly adaptable.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Joe. I think there'll be a lot of interest in that technology in WorldFish because do a lot of survey work and data collecting in the field. So that sounds great. Terri, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, not to belabor it, but I do think just to clarify, the super utility of this is that most people have a device, an Android or some other device, a phone, but they don't have internet connectivity, their data plans, it's costly or whatever. If they have a device, they can take it into the field, collect their data, and whenever, a day, a month, 6 months, whenever they get back to an internet connection, it automatically links into that internet connection, that if it's so long as one that they've programmed, and it'll shoot that data to us. Nice. So it's very cost effective for the farmer too, because they don't have to spend money on data.
Great. Thanks very much, Joe. Terri, the other question I had was with regards to how did you choose the participants in your program?
This had a lot to do with Dr. Oyebola in country. He knew, I mean, it's a great question. Basically, there are different clusters, aquaculture clusters in Nigeria, and also cooperatives and corporates. And Joe some of this is more Joe's expertise. But Oyebola went out and sat with those groups and talked with them and told them about our program and told them about the benefits that they would receive, and talk to some of the leaders in those areas as well. So that was a lot to do with the in-country consultant. So talking with the leaders, having them arrange a group meeting with representatives. And at the end of the day, everyone that came wanted to participate. So our participation grew. We were originally thinking around 20, and thanks to the leadership of Dr. Rohana and Sunil, they were able to make that work. So we were able to accommodate all 40, which was very impressive.
Right. I mean, the results, really sound, fantastic and very encouraging. I'm just thinking in particular of our work in Bangladesh, where, just working in 2 states in the Northwest, we literally deal with hundreds of thousands of farmers. Wow. In terms of trying to make an impact at scale, have you got any thoughts, tips about how we might do that? Because, we're trying wherever possible to become smart about, sort of going through, one of the models we've been using is going through local service providers. So rather than trying to do groups ourselves, we get local service providers, to provide training. Perhaps that may be a way to utilize this in Bangladesh, perhaps. What do you think?
I think that's an interesting idea, interesting concept. It definitely warrants some good planning. I already got my brain starting to think about it, right? But yes, I could see that type of a structure. I see Rohana has his hand up. You want to add to this, Dr. Rohana?
Hi, Terri. Hi, Colin.
Hi.
Yeah, it was great to hear and also to reconfirm what's been done and the success so far. besides what you said and also what Joe said, I think another aspect of this whole exercise I see is that we are still engaged in capacity development and training and sort of a knowledge improvement development in a different way. It's sort of an out of the box thinking, and by applying the lean concepts and lean principles, at the end of the day, what happens is that they do better, right? And I think this is quite different from our traditional training and capacity development approach. And also this is a multiplier type of approach. We've proven it by taking 10 to 20 to 40 to 150 to, it will go on and on, right? And I think the time taken is also much less. And the energy used for that process is also less, right? I think it's not only the whole training is effective, efficient, but the way the training conducted, the lean principle, the way Terri did it itself is very effective and efficient. I think at the end of the day, the people learn how to not to waste and how to improve the efficiency in a way that Terri didn't waste either, right, of what she used. I think that's the sort of thing that I really see in this. And knowing Bangladesh and how many farmers and how big the small scale sector in Bangladesh and the importance of sort of a proper management and sort of maybe Colin, you should consider bringing somebody like Terri into the equation and have a look. I'll stop at that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rahana. I can see Joe's got his hand up. You're muted. Oh, there you go.
I mean, I'm not sure if you can hear me, but yeah, I was just going to echo, I think what Rohana said, which is that perhaps there's no greater force multiplier than success. And it doesn't take long for good ideas to disseminate when it's obvious on their face that they're successful. And the great benefit is when you work in cooperatives, and I haven't been to Bangladesh, I'm not sure how it operates, but the reason we chose to work with cooperatives and the people we selected from the cooperatives were really the people who have had high social capital. Colin, you and I have talked about this in the past, but having those sorts of people, being judicious in who you select initially, but having high social capital people, then having some real success early on, and those ideas will be adopted, those principles will be adopted. And so we don't know yet. It's still very, very early for us. We haven't done any of the math, the big math on it, but I think it's exceeded our expectation thus far, and we had high expectations.
Thanks, Joe. I see Sunil has his hand up.
Thanks, Colin. Just to add to what Rohana has said, one interesting feature in this approach is to identify your waste streams, where the waste is happening, and to reduce or prevent waste. You hardly invest. There's no need for new investments or minimal investment. So that is the most important character in this approach. So we are not talking about bringing new investment to improve things. We are reorganizing, rearranging things, and doing things in a different way so that the efficiency is increased and you increase your profits. So that is the important feature of this approach. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sunil. I'm just wondering if any of our Bangladesh colleagues have any thoughts about this. Debashish, you're on the sort of management private sector side. What do you think of that presentation, and what lessons to be learned for Bangladesh? Debashish? Debashish,
hi, Colin. Sorry.
Hi, Debashish.
Yeah. So, these are the interesting thing that Terri shared. So probably we can kind of talk with her about a bit more details in coming days, probably, or or we can also go through the slides if that is shareable to us. So yeah, so currently I don't have any comment, but I can definitely go through it and share my feedback.
Sure. No, thanks very much, Debashish. That's great.
And we can also share our experience with Terri as well, so that we can kind of share our experiences and definitely do something more effective in coming days, if that is possible.
Yeah, I was just wondering. We've been doing some entrepreneurial training in Bangladesh. Do you think any aspects of this lean management are being currently used in that entrepreneurial training, or is it a different approach?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that to Terri or is that to me?
To you, Debashish. Yeah, to you.
Okay, so I think the aspects is a bit different because we are scaling up the entrepreneurship skills here, and not likely to engage them in different other different businesses. If I'm correct and if I understand correctly. So
okay, thanks, Debashish. Joe.
Colin, and I'm sorry, I do have to drop off after this. I got to go to another meeting, but Terri can probably speak to this as well. As you may know, or as we've talked about, I've done a considerable amount of entrepreneurship development and entrepreneurial training. The great thing about Lean is there's a Lean startup program. So that's Lean startup, or a Lean toolkit for early stage entrepreneurs on how to start and basically start the business with Lean principles. I'm not sure where you are in your process there in Bangladesh, and I'm not trying to advocate, to change course or anything, but just something to consider. I know Terri has got great expertise in this as well, but this is something that we teach quite frequently, and so basically it's basically, whereas we're talking about existing operations and going in and reducing systems and culture, reducing waste within systems and cultures that have already existed in some for many years. If you're talking about a startup environment and an entrepreneurial environment, you could also use the same sets of tools employed a little bit differently to start off with a Lean framework and grow a little bit more quickly with higher profit returns. So I'll let Terri speak to Lean entrepreneurship if she wants, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that is part of the Lean portfolio of training.
Great. Thanks very much. I can see.
And bye, everybody. It's good to see you.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. See you next time. Terri, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I was going to share this. So it's actually a book called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and it's focused specifically on entrepreneurship. So just a heads up, there's a book out there on it that takes Lean specifically for startups.
Right.
That's a good resource.
Okay. I've got one more question for you. Obviously, we deal with a lot of very poor farmers with very limited resources.
Yes.
Do you still think what you're doing is appropriate for that category, or is the training more important for small businesses, perhaps the next stage up from the smallest of small farmers?
Well, that's what was so wonderful about this project and the focus of this project. We had a lot of small independent farmers that were part of our participants, because what Lean does is it helps you see what you're currently doing and look for waste and opportunities to improve without spending money, just like Dr. Sunil mentioned a few minutes ago. And it was a great point. Lean is all about low-cost solutions. Like, what can we do? How can we be resourceful with what we have and best utilize our time, talents, and resources? And so it's absolutely applicable to, especially those that are, that are currently doing this work that don't have many means, because it really analyzes at a small level, right, all of the waste that's there and remove it. And you heard some of the results and some of the focuses of the in-field activities where they saw we're overfeeding. Well, that's money. We're just throwing money away if we're overfeeding our fish, right? Or, using water pumps and the fuels, electricity too much when we don't need to. So these are, it's applicable to all levels. That's why I love this. And that's why I've been doing it for over 20 years in a variety of industries, because it works with any process anywhere.
Right.
So it's a great tool set. Yeah.
Thanks, Terri. Okay, boys and girls, any more questions before we let Terri off the hook and say, well, to her, good morning, and to everyone else, good night. So thank you once again, Terri. I look forward to seeing the reports as they come out and follow, the successes moving forward. So thank you so much, and good morning, and have a nice rest of the day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.